We're going to ask our the person who started off this event, Jim Oberstar, to give his thoughts. He's been taking notes, and he's going to give us his wisdom and maybe give us some suggestions as to where we should go next.
We selected a splendid assortment of ideas in the two panels, and I want to compliment all the presenters on their on the work that they put into preparing their remarks and the responsiveness to the questions that were asked. Usually people avoid the question and give the answer they want rather than the answer people are looking for. That was commendable. Senator Klobuchar gave one of her best talks ever today. I think we'll keep her in transportation for a while. Matt Rose, in his excellent summary of the of remarks on the National Transportation Policy and Revenue Study Commission, proposed going to the core issue of how do you fund the future of transportation, and advocated a national freight fee, quote, paid by the beneficial cargo owner, not the shipping intermediaries, the steamship, the truck, or the rail, to ensure that commerce is not burdened and that the ultimate consumer or beneficiary bears the cost. The user fee principle has driven our federal aid highway program and our national aviation investment program and made both extremely successful. But since the action of Proposition 13 in California, tax or fee has become a bad word, except as a toll or in some other way paying for it that isn't called a tax. Matt Rose laid out a plan for the future, a way to make the investments and to distribute the cost among those who are the beneficiaries. A fee is a charge for a service to which the fee is directly attributable. And achieving that goal has, in a constructive way, has escaped our policymakers. I think underlying the discussion today has been matter of cost of cost of investing and source of revenue to make the appropriate investments. And in addition to that fundamental issue, each of the presenters discussed the issue of logistics, of intermodalism, of involving each of the modes of transportation in the way that each is beneficially constructed to contribute to our transportation network. In 1982, logistics consumed 17% of our gross domestic product. Because of investments we made in our surface transportation program in the 82, 87, and 91 surface transportation legislation, and increasing the user fee in 91 and then again in 93, brought the cost of logistics down to 7%. That was a $900 billion gain in a then $10 trillion economy. Today we have a $15 trillion economy, and because we haven't invested, because we haven't made increased contributions into the Highway Trust Fund and our inland waterway system, cost of logistics is now back up to 13% of GDP. That is a drag on our national economy, and in their own way, each of the presenters has discussed that issue. Finding that beneficial cargo owner and that beneficial participant in paying for the system is the challenge that still escapes our national legislature, although thanks to bipartisanship in the Minnesota legislature with Senator Dibble and Representative Beard, Chairman Frank Hornstein, and others, we've addressed that issue from time to time and have a willingness to continue doing it in the next session of the legislature. If you look at the range of household expenditures, housing is 33.5% of what households spend in this country. The cost of food is 15.2%. The cost of transportation is 20.3% of household expenditures. Lowering that cost for households, for businesses, for the transportation entities themselves must be the challenge of and the goal of our future transportation policies. The congestion in this country, as I said at the outset, measured by the Texas Transportation Institute and University of Minnesota partnering in this, is $818 per commuter last year. In 1982, that was $342. Bringing that cost down for commuters and for our freight movement has to be the centerpiece of future transportation policy. Recognizing the respective roles of our modes of transportation, reducing commuter congestion benefits freight goods movement. And making freight goods more affordable, reducing that included cost of logistics that was cited in the second panel, has to, the environmental benefit of rail to move freight, as Senator Dibble talked about, changing the culture of rail view of their property to a service oriented mode is what Mr. Rose has done as the CEO of BNSF Railroad, invested in the National Transportation Policy and Revenue Study Commission report. The commission recommended $1.2 billion new investment a year. Mr. Rose said BNSF alone is investing $4.5 billion in this current year. The railroads invested over $12 billion last year in improving their road. So what more needs to be done? We have to get our congestion down. We have to make our cities more mobile and more livable. And we're doing it now in these stovepipe structures of transportation at the federal level and at the state level. In my 2009 transportation bill, I said we're going to transform all of that. We proposed an Office of Intermodalism in the Office of the Secretary, headed by an Undersecretary of Intermodalism. Our bill required that Undersecretary to create a national transportation strategic plan and requiring the development of a national freight strategic plan. We required each state to develop a state freight plan with current and long-term freight planning activities, with state advisory committees for freight corridor coalitions established under that law, dedicated funding for freight projects, a dedicated revenue stream for projects of national and regional significance, and a separate account of revenue to be invested in those projects with $25 billion over a 6-year period, and freight improvement programs. Well, none of that has been done in the years since 2009. Unless we resolve nationally to make a greater focus on freight and understand its role in our national economy, as each of the presenters has suggested, we're not going to be competitive in the international marketplace. If you just look at the non-U.S. corn production, it has gone from 11 billion tons in 1990 to 20.9 billion tons last year, 20.9 billion bushels last year. So 280 million tons to 530 million tons, 11 billion bushels to nearly 21 billion bushels of corn produced outside the United States. Matt Rose talked about the Secretary of Agriculture visiting Brazil. I think you were on that visit. That what inhibits them from shipping more and more efficiently is their internal transportation network. But from the port of Santos in Brazil, where Brazil exports the same sorghum, soybeans, and corn that we do, to the same East African, West African, Pacific Rim ports, they have a 2,300-mile advantage over us. They're that farther out into the South Atlantic than the Port of New Orleans, from which our $75 billion of annual grain production is exported to the world marketplace. And Brazil is going to figure that out and improve their internal transportation system to move their goods more efficiently to further advance on their already natural advantage over the United States, the world's largest producer of grain. And the European Union isn't waiting for us to make those investments. The Transport Ministry of the European Union 10 years ago embarked on a 20-year, $1.3 trillion transportation investment program with 30 projects that they track every 3 months and report to their respective national governments, including a freight rail system from Spain to the Baltic. They have very superb passenger rail networks serving the heart of Europe, but they're very slow and very poor on freight rail. They're going to fix that. They're more than 2/3 of the way through investing in that freight rail network to link the Mediterranean to the Baltic. They're also linking a truck route, 1,500 miles through the heart of Europe, with a similar connection from the Med to the Baltic. And they are building a canal to link the North Sea to the Black Sea, 2,000 miles across the heart of Europe, with a more than $3 billion investment that they've made already toward eventually a $10 billion project to use the waterways that exist and link them in a more connected way to through the heart of Europe. We need to be doing all those things in the United States. The railroads are doing their part, more than their part, investing more than they've ever done since the heyday of 1850 to 1871, when the great expansion and explosion of rail investment took place in America. The British are investing more in this fiscal year, 17.8 billion pounds, than they've invested since the Victorian era in improving their passenger and freight rail network in the heart of England. The challenge to us is not to sit there and, as Senator Dibble said, admire the problem, but rather to address the problem. And this panel has given us ideas of where to go, how to go about it, and the work of the forum will be to continue from this starting point and expand upon these constructive ideas and engage the public in the discussion of goods movement in America. This past Christmas, $45 billion of product, of Christmas goods, presents and so on, were ordered over the internet. But the Ethernet cable didn't deliver a single package. It came by rail and truck, making it easier for those goods to move from point of production to point of consumption is the biggest challenge that we have in this country. If we don't meet it, we will slip back into a period of decline. Addressing that issue is the central purpose of this forum. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you, Mr. Oberstar.